Hello everyone, welcome to this session of Class 6 Mathematics, and I'm your Anu again for MathSchool.1. We have completed chapter fractions, isn't it? I hope you would all have practiced well and you would all been thorough with the chapter fractions, right? Now we are going to the next chapter, which is called decimals. Okay, so before going to decimals, let's see some concepts regarding the previous chapter, because that's going to be a continuation. This chapter decimals is going to be a continuation of the chapter. So let's have a quick recap. So now by this time we know well much about fractions, isn't it? So we know fractions are of the form p by q. We have a number on the top which is called numerator and the bottom which is called the denominator, and we can also divide the number which is on the top by the number which is in the bottom, which is called the denominator, right? So these fractions, we know it's a part of a whole. Okay, so if I have a piece of cake and I cut it into two equal parts, so equal parts, that you should remember, two equal parts, then one part will be 1 divided by 2. We write it as 1 by 2, which means one part out of the two parts. Okay, so a part of the whole is always represented as a fraction. We know that. Now how do we arrive at the numbers called decimals? So okay, there are some numbers called decimals from fractions. That's an interesting thing to know. Fractions, decimals are continuation of fractions, or fractions lead to decimals. So now we'll understand how do we find out decimal numbers. Now what are decimal numbers? Let's see what are decimal numbers. So deci means 10. Okay, deci means 10. Okay, understand the word deci means 10. So with the base as 10, we represent each and every place with the base 10. Okay, so how do we do it? We'll start studying decimals, but before that I would just like to introduce decimals to yourself. Like when we introduce some person, we say this is his name, or he is such and such. Okay, so he lives in this place, like that we introduce, isn't it? So like that I would like to introduce decimals to you by naming its parts. What are they? Okay, so I will write, actually see 256.35. this is how a decimal number look like. Okay, so decimal number looks like 256.35. there is a point here. So I mean, how do I name its parts? Okay, so let's see. 256 alone, we know how to name it, isn't it? So we have place values like units, tens and hundreds here. So I'll just call it as 256. So we know it. Okay. Now this is called a point, which is the decimal point. We call this as a decimal point, or simply point. Okay. So this separates a number, a decimal number, into two parts. Okay, so the first part is the whole number. This is called a whole number. 256 is a whole number. Okay, so point, and after the point there are some numbers, and it can extend to any number. Okay, so just like we can write this, I mean this side we can write numbers up to infinity, even that side you can write it up to infinity, it goes on. Okay, so here I have written just 2, and we'll see what is the place value of those two numbers. How do we name them? Okay, so this, after the decimal point, these numbers are called the decimal part of the number. Okay, so these are the numbers. Real decimal part of the numbers are after the point. We have 0.35. So how are we going to name it? Okay, so we have place value for them. So just I name it, I mean I call it as decimal part of the number, and decimal places. I say there are two decimal places here because there are two numbers here. And how do I read the number as a whole? I read it as 256.35. I should read the numbers separately, not together. 256.35, no, it's not correct. 256.35. 0.5 is how I read a decimal number. Okay, do you understand? So here, just like you have the decimal, place value for the whole number, the decimal numbers also has place value. Okay, so now let's go into the detail and we'll know about the place value of the decimal numbers. So here I have just told you how to read a decimal number, 256.35. So that is how this number is called. So I have introduced you a decimal number. So now we'll move on to the next thing, which is the place value. Okay, just like we have place values for the whole number, starting right from units, place tens, then hundreds, thousands, 10,000s. The same way we have place values for decimal numbers also. Okay, so we'll make a chart so that it will be easy for you to understand. Okay, so first I'll start with the whole number part. Units, tens, hundreds and thousands and so on, you know this. And for the decimal part, before giving the place values, now let's understand with the diagram what is a decimal number, what decimal means. We'll understand now. Okay, so if I say there is one box here, okay, there is a one square here. This is let us assume this has to be one square. So one square is there, I say it is one square. If I have 10 squares like this, okay, if I have 10 squares, so 5 in a column. So if I have 10 squares, I say there are 10 squares here. If I have 20 or 100, okay, so 200, 300 or thousands, so I have whole of these squares. See, the square is a whole. Okay, I have not made parts, I have not divided it equally, just like we do it in fractions. I have not divided it. I have drawn squares fully. Okay, so I can draw any number of squares here and I can number it also. So that becomes the whole number part. Okay, so that much number of squares we say. Then what about the decimal numbers? How do we represent it? I take one square here. So just imagine, this is not actual square, just imagine I am drawing this square in a little bigger, okay, for you to understand. The same square, I draw one square a little bigger, okay, for you to understand. So this is the same, actually these two squares are same, just I'm magnifying it and showing it to you. So now this is one square, okay, so I've taken one square from here and now I'm going to divide it into 10 equal parts. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and this is 9, and I'm adding one more because I don't have space, so I've added one more. So there are 10 equal parts here. Do you understand? So I have divided the square into 10 equal parts. I said before, fractions can be written as decimals. That is, fractions, the other way of representing fractions are decimals. So let's see how do we represent decimal numbers. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just shade one part of it. Okay, 10 parts. I've divided into 10 equal parts. I'm shading just one part. Now how do we write it in fraction? See, according to this diagram, this is 1 by 10, isn't it? So because it is divided equally into 10 parts and I have shaded one part, so this is equal to 1 divided by 10. Now how do I represent this in the a decimal, as a decimal number? Then what is, how can I represent this as a number is, see, there are 10 equal parts, isn't it? So out of which I have shaded only one part. So this is the decimal part of the number. So these are all whole number parts. See, I have drawn 10 squares here. So 10 is the whole number part. So how do I write a decimal number? I should put a point here. Next, I should start writing the decimal number, if any. So here I have 10 equal parts, out of which one is shaded. So here I have shown you what is the number in the decimal part. So the number in the decimal part means only one part is shaded out of 10 parts. So I write just 1 here. Do you understand? Now here this is 1. Now what about the next number? If I need to write a next, there is a next number, there is another number here, then how do I represent it? See, if I have written 2 here, if the number is 10.12, if the decimal number is 10.12, then here we have 1, that is 1, this is shaded, one part is shaded. For the next number, how do I represent the next number? So imagine I have shaded 1 for 1, that is over. Imagine I am drawing a next square, and the next square is further divided into 10 equal parts. Already it is 10 equal parts, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 and 10 here. So now already 10, it is divided into 10 parts. Now further I am dividing it to 10 equal parts. Now totally how much? 10 into 10, we have 100 equal parts, isn't it? We have 100 equal parts here. And what I am going to do is, see what is the number given here? What's the number given here? Here it is 2, isn't it? So the next place is, we have the number in the next place as 2. So just shade 2 part. So the first square in the decimal point had 10 equal parts and 1 part was square, isn't it? Do you remember that? I've just drawn on the same square, but there is, imagine that the previous square is there, only 1 is shaded out of 10 equal parts. So I have written 1 here. Now for 2, what I have made, I have further divided it into 10 equal parts, that is, so that it becomes 100 equal parts here in the square, and I have shaded just 2. Okay, so which means 2 out of 100. So this is, how can I write this? I can write this as 2 by 100. That is, out of 100, only 2 are shaded. Here, imagine that you have 10 equal parts, 3, 4, like that you have 10 equal parts. Here 1 divided by 10. So 1 by 10, 1 out of 10, I write 1 here, 2 out of 100, I write 2 here. So by this time you would have guessed what is the place value of this number and what is the place value of this number. So the place value of this number is called 10th, which means 1 by 10. 1 by 10. It is represented as 1 by 10. 1 by 10, or parts. How many parts are there in 10 parts? Okay, so that is, it is represented as 1/10, or I just say it as 10th. Okay, and the next one is 100th. It is called as 100th. And obviously the next place has to be 1000th. Okay, add th to the names. Okay, just like the whole numbers, we have units, tenths, hundreds and thousands. We have 10th, 100th and 1000th. Okay, you add th to it, that is 1 by 100. That is 1 by 10th of it, 1 by 100th of it and 1 by 1000th of it. Okay, but we don't have units place. Just like units place, we don't have units place there, because 1 by 1 is anyway the same units place. So after the decimal point, you have 10th, 100th and 1000th as represented in the diagrams. Do you understand? So when I write a number, a decimal number with a decimal point, how do I place it in the place value chart? See, first 356.35. Okay, so 356.35, we have to read it like this, where 356, I am going to write this in the place value chart. So 356. Okay, now 0.35. Now 3 is in the 10th place and 5 is in the 100th place. That's it. Okay, so that is how we give place value for the numbers in a decimal number. So you would have understood what is this, what is the place value of 3 and what is the place value of 5 by now, isn't it? So 3 is in the 10th place and 5 is in the 100th place. Do you understand? Now after this, so actually while reading it, how do we read it? I told you we should not read it continuously. As a number, this is not read as 35, it is read as 0.35. So whenever I write 356 in words, 356.35, then it represents this number. I can also read it as 356 and 35 hundredths. I can say 35 hundredths. See? So while writing it in words, I can write it like this. 356, that's the whole number part, that's easy for you. And 35 hundredths, I should say 35 hundredths, not just 35 hundredths. So if I say 35 hundredths, it means 0.35. Just read the decimal place. What is the last decimal place which is given for you? If it is 100th, then you know there are two places, that is 10th and 100th. You know there are two places in the decimal part. Okay, so that is the clue for you. See, if I write say for example 46 and 7 thousandths. So if I write like this, see, when there is no number here for the 10th and 100th place, but then how do you write the number? There is a clue, thousandth. They have given you 7,000, isn't it? So if it is 7,000ths place, I know for thousandths place I should write 7 here. So I'll rewrite the number in the place value chart. So after seeing 1000, see the number before it, 7,000. So write 7 in the 1000th place, and rest of the things 0, as we usually do in the whole number part. If there are no numbers, we put 0 in those places, and 46. Now how do I write this number? How do I write this number in numerals? This is written as 46.007. So 10th place before 10th place, put a decimal point here, and this is the decimal number. Now do you understand how do we find a place value for the decimal numbers, and how do we write them, and how do we interpret them from the words? Okay, you just see what is the decimal part, or what is the decimal place value given at last. So start from it, then you will be able to write the number. Do you understand? So this is how we understand the place value for decimal numbers. Now next thing is, we are going to expand the decimal number. Just we do for the whole numbers, we expand in the similar way we expand decimal numbers, but let's see how do we expand the decimal part. Okay, so take 287, right, 0.059. So how do I expand this number? I know to expand the whole number part, as we do in the lower classes, we expand 2 into 100, 8 into 10, yes, plus 7 into 1. Then now comes the decimal part, right? So how do I expand? I told you, now when you expand, you just remember the fraction part. What I told you for the 10th place, what I told you, you can write it as 1 by 10, isn't it? It is represented as 1 by 10. So plus 0 into, this is 10th place, this is 100th place, and this is 1000th place, isn't it? So that is 1000th place. So 0 into 1 by 10 plus 10th place, 100th place is written as 5 into 1 by 100 plus 9 is written as 9 into 1 by 1000. So this is how we expand the decimal numbers. Whole number part is expanded as such, you know, and the decimal parts, you just write it in terms of fractions. So remember the diagram, the squares I have shown you, 10 parts, 10 equal parts in which 1 was shaded, and 100 equal parts in which 2 was shaded. So likewise, you need to split the squares into tens and hundreds and thousands, and the parts given here, the number given here are the parts which are shaded. Do you understand? So that is what we understand from the decimal part. Now 2 into 100, 8 into 10, plus 7 into 1, plus 0 into 10, 5 into 1 by 100, sorry, 0 into 1 by 10, 5 into 1 by 100, and 9 into 1 by 1000. This is how we expand a decimal number. Now do you understand? So whenever the expansion is given, you should be able to write the number, the decimal number. Go back to the decimal number with the expansion given. Okay, that's right. Now, next is, now we saw words to decimals too, we have seen, and now fractions to decimals. So let us move on to the first point which I said, fractions can be represented as decimals. So how fractions can be represented as decimals? Fractions are nothing but, I said, those are parts of a whole number, isn't it? The whole number or a whole part is given, and you are dividing it into equal parts, and if some parts are shaded, or if we consider some parts, we write it in fraction. Now, after writing the fraction, what are the representations of fractions? The decimal numbers. Decimal, we can represent the fractions as decimal numbers. We'll see how do we represent them. Okay, so just take first, I'll start with fractions which have denominators and multiples of 10. That will be easy for you. Then we'll move on to the other denominators. Okay, so now I write 2 by 10, 35 by 100, 76 by 10. So these are the fractions I have whose denominators are multiples of tens. So this will be easy for you. Okay, so one thing is, the first one is by division method. First thing is division method, and the second thing is, method is seeing the denominator denominator which are multiples of tens. Okay, you just need to identify how many zeros are there, and then you need to keep the points. So depending upon the denominator which are multiples of 10. Okay, so we have two methods. Now we'll go to the first method, that is dividing. Okay, so now can 2 be divided by 10? Obviously no, isn't it? So we can't divide 2 by 10 because it is much smaller. But in decimal, to find out decimal numbers, we can divide, and there is a method for it. Okay, so just see. Now 2 is not divisible by 10, isn't it? So what we write is, if at all the given number, that is the numerator, is less than the denominator, then put 0. Okay, because it doesn't divide 2. 10 doesn't divide 2, so put 0. So 10 zeros are 0, we know. Subtract, you get 2, isn't it? So that is the first step. According to division, that is the first step. Now what is the rule is, I can keep a point here. If at all the divisor doesn't divide the dividend, if it is less than the divisor, this dividend is less than the divisor, then we can keep a point here. Keeping a point gives us a privilege of adding zeros to the dividend. Okay, when I put a point there, I can add zeros to the number. So which number I can add 0 here? Okay, now I have put a point here, then I have added 1 0 here. Now this 20 is divisible by 10, isn't it? So how many times? 2 times. So 10 2s are 20, and we get a remainder 0. That's it. So 0.2 is the decimal equivalent for 2 by 10. That's all. So this is as simple as it is. So 2 by 10 is equal to 0.2. Do you understand? This is according to the division. I'll do the division for the other two also, so that you will be able to understand more easily. So if we do again and again, so practice makes perfect, isn't it? So 2 divided by 10 is equal to 0.2. Now the second method, we'll move on to the second method, that is depending upon the denominator which are multiples of 10. Then how do we put decimal points, or how do we write decimal numbers? Now you see here 2 divided by 10. Let us take the first sum, 2 divided by 10. You just see the denominator, multiple of 10, it is 10 here. So how many zeros are there? Only 1 0 is there. So write the dividend. First write the dividend. Start from the right. After writing the dividend, start from the right of the dividend and move as many places as there are zeros in the denominator towards left. Do you understand? I'll repeat. Write the dividend to, start from the right, move as many places as there are number of zeros in the denominator towards left. You should move towards left. How many places you need to jump? how many zeros are there, that much number of places. Here only 1 0 is here. So start from right, you jump only once, put a point here. Okay, we have jumped only once towards left because only 1 0 is here. So 0.2. So I need not write point, simply I should not write 0.2. There should be some number in the whole number part. There is no number, so write 0. 0.2 is the decimal equivalency, just the same. Now do you understand? So this is a very easy method to convert a fraction to decimal, provided you have multiples of tens in the denominator. Okay, now we'll move on to 35 divided by 100. How do we convert this into decimal number? See, you have two zeros here. Just write 35. Okay, just write 35. I told you to write the dividend as it is. And see how many zeros are there. There are two zeros are there. Start from 0, move towards left as many times as zeros in the denominator. So I start from here 1, 2. 2 zeros are there. So put a point. So we should not leave the whole number part as such. So write 0.35. Now what is that for 76 divided by 10? So this is the answer for this. And what is the answer for 76 divided by 10? So first step is write the dividend as it is. Then see how many zeros are there. There is only 1 0. Start from the right, move towards left as many zeros. There is only 1 0, so put a point here. So the answer is 7.6. So it is very easy for you to find out the decimal number from the fraction by this method. Okay, I'll show you. Even if you divide, you will get the same answer. See, 76 divided by 10. Now this 76 is obviously greater than 10, so you can divide how many times? 10 sevens are 76. But see that the reminder, actually one point is there, until you get 0 you keep on dividing. If you don't get, until you get 0 as a reminder, you keep dividing. If you don't get 0, even after so many places in the decimal part, even you don't get 0, some numbers are there which doesn't terminate after the decimal point, it doesn't stop. Okay, so you can find just 3 or 4 places or 2 or 3 places, whichever is asked for, and you can stop with that. Okay, so now you have 6 here. Let's try if we can get a reminder 0. So you have 6 here, and 6 is not divisible by 10. So what I told you, you just keep a point. Okay, then you can add 0 to this 6. Now 60 is obviously divisible 6 times. So 10, 6 are 60. So 7.6, you have got 7.6. Do you understand? So this is how we find out decimal numbers from fractions, either by dividing or by putting a point, depending upon the denominator, which are multiples of tens. Do you understand? So now these are for denominators 10. So directly if you have denominators 10, you can do it. So you'll have a question now. You should ask a question now. If the denominators are not 10, they are not multiples of 10, then what will I do? So for those numbers, we have the same method, the same procedure, but before that we need to do some other thing. See, like 2 by 5, 3 by 7, 6 by 4. So I have taken 3 fractions. Now let's see how do we convert them into this or by any other method. Okay. So now 2 by 5, if it is 2 by 5, see the denominator. If the denominator can be changed into 10, okay, do you understand? If the denominator can be changed to 10, then you can follow the same method you followed for this. After changing the denominator to 10, you can do it like this one. If at all the denominator cannot be changed as multiples of tens, like tens or hundreds or thousands like that, then you can do normal division. Okay, so now first thing is 2 by 5. Now 2 by 5, see the denominator 5 can be changed to 10. How it can be changed to 10? You just multiply it by 2. So 5 2s are 10, isn't it? So now if I multiply the denominator by 2, the same thing has to be done to the numerator. Just remember, whatever you do in the denominator, the same thing has to be done to the numerator, otherwise the fraction will be changed. Okay, So now this becomes 4 by 10. Now this will be easy for you to convert to decimal number. How do you convert this into decimal number? Just write 4. You see only 1 0 here. From right, you jump to left one place and 0.4 is the answer. So when you divide 2 by 5, it will fetch you the same answer. See, I will show you. 5. 2 is divided by 5. Now 2 is less than 5, so put a 0 here. So 5 zeros are 0, so you have 2 here. Now again, point, you can add 1 0, so 0.4. Okay, the same answer. Now do you understand? Now this is how we convert the fractions whose denominators are not 10 but can be changed to 10. Likewise, 6 by 4. How 6 by 4 can be changed? See, now 4 cannot be changed to 10, okay? But by multiplying it by 25, I can change it into 100. So this is also a multiple of 10, isn't it? So 100. Now 25 into 6 is, yes, 150. Now 150 divided by 100, I can change it into decimal place. Just write 150 as it is. See, there are 2 zeros here. So start from right, move 2 places towards left. So 1.50. So 1.50, always do remember, zeros at the end of the decimal places has no value. Okay, but zeros in between, see, just like the 0 in the whole number before, that is starting, you don't have, we don't usually write a 0 in the whole number place, isn't it? So it doesn't have any value here. You can write just 1. Likewise, this 0 doesn't have any value. You just write 1.5. Do you understand? So 1.5 is the answer for 6 by 4. Now how do I divide? See, I divide and see. 6 divided by 4. Now 1 time 4, subtract 2, but 2 is less than 4. So what I do is I keep a point here, add 1 0. So it becomes 5 times 20. So the answer is 0.5. Did you get it? Yes. So the same way we can do for denominators which can be converted to multiples of tens. It will be very easy for you to change it into decimal number. Now what about 3 by 7? In between we have 3 by 7, isn't it? 7 can't be changed into multiples of tens multiplying with any number. So what do? I just divide it directly. Now 3 is less than 7, so put a 0. So 3 is 7, 0 sevens are 0. Now put a point here, put a 0 here. 7 fours are 28. Now if I subtract, I get 2. Okay, so they've asked you to imagine that they've asked you to find out up to 2 places or 3 places. Now what happens is, we have already kept a point. No need to keep successive points here, or no need to change the point. You can add just 0. So if you keep 1 point, then that is sufficient. And as you go by, you can add zeros as how many zeros as you can add. Needed, you can add. Okay, so this becomes 2. I can add 1 0 here. 7 2s are 14 and get 6 here. And again I can add a 0. 7 8s are 56. I have 4 here. Okay, so I can go on writing it until I get a 0 at the end, or I can stop with this. It will be going on, so I can stop with this. So the answer is 0.4285. Approximately it is 0.4285. Okay, so that is how we find out decimal numbers for fractions whose denominators are other than tens or multiples of tens. Do you understand? So either change the denominator to tens or multiples of tens if you can. Otherwise, divide it directly so that you can get the decimal numbers. Do you understand? So that is how we change fractions to decimals. So we have seen fractions to decimals. I hope you would have understood up to this. We have done until fractions to decimals in this class. So in the next class, we'll be seeing how to convert decimals back to fractions. We have seen fractions to decimals, isn't it? So we'll see how to convert decimals to fractions, and then we'll visualize, we'll illustrate the decimal numbers on a number line. We'll see where do they stand in the number line. and how they sit in between whole numbers, decimal numbers. Actually, fractions are, we know fractions are in between whole numbers, isn't it? So likewise, how do these decimal numbers sit between whole numbers, and what are the nearest whole numbers? So all these things we'll be doing, and comparisons we'll be seeing. And like fractions, what we what we studied in fractions, like fractions and unlike fractions, we'll see like decimals and unlike decimals too. And also at the last we'll be seeing the operations with decimal places, with decimal numbers, and their applications also, where we use decimal numbers. So everything has a use, isn't it? Everything we study has to be put to some use. So we'll see applications of decimals also. So with this I end this class, and we'll see in the next class still more about decimals. Until then, keep practicing. It's bye from Anu. Thank you.